If you are working 50, 60, 70 hours a week as a business owner, but still lying awake at night wondering, where has all the money gone? Maybe you're busier than ever before, but your bank account looks exactly the same as it did 6 months ago, then this episode is for you. Because one of the things that is not really talked about is that being busy is not the same as being profitable. In fact, I've worked with so many business owners who work themselves into the ground, completely exhausted, celebrating these revenue growth milestones, but they're actually earning less an hour than if you were working in a coffee shop. Just last month, I helped a client who celebrated her first £10,000 month. And she was like, this is what everyone wants to get. This is what everyone wants to reach, right? Why do I feel so poor? When we actually sat down and looked at her numbers, her real costs, her actual time invested, what she was paying herself as a business owner, she made £847 profit. That's £847 for working 65 hours a week for 30 days. That's less than minimum wage. So the brutal truth is that for a lot of business owners, you may be feeling confused, busy being trying to be successful, but really not understanding the reality of how to make more profit in business, how to make decisions, not just based on revenue, but based on profit. And then wondering why you're feeling like you're running on this hamster wheel that's getting faster, but going nowhere. So I'm going to be breaking down for you in today's podcast episode, or you may be watching this on video, exactly why you're busy but not profitable. And more importantly, the 3 ways to fix it. So by the end of this episode, you'll know how to design your life first, then build a business to fund it, and then have a really clear roadmap to turn all of that busy work into actual profit. Sound good? Great. So let's dive into some of these pieces. So the first thing I want to address is that the number one profit confusion, what most business owners get wrong, is that they focus on vanity metrics. So what I mean by that is that social media's success or version of success is very often not the actual reality of profits being made in the business. And so as business owners, you may be focusing on how much money you're making, but that's really just like revenue, or maybe you're focusing on your turnover. You're not really focusing on the profit. What are you actually left with at the end of the month after you've paid your team, your expenses, and paying yourself? Right, I'm going to be talking about that more in a second. And I think that because of all of this focus on growth and revenue and optimizing and making more money, like it really just clouds for most business owners the reality of why they set up their business in the first place, which is about paying themselves more money so that you can live the life that you wanted to create in the first place. Most people go into business because they see a problem or they don't want to work for somebody, and they want to have a better life. But in pursuit of that better life, they actually don't end up earning more than they could earn in a corporate job, right? And I know you probably don't want to go back to that position. So focusing on turnover is actually keeping you broke, right? This version of social media success is not the reality. And I think some of the biggest common mistakes that kind of diminish profit is that, number one, we make emotional decisions instead of data-driven ones. Number two is that we reinvest everything back into the business without actually paying yourself. Number three is that we confuse ourselves with being busy with being profitable. They're not the same thing. Number four is that we don't actually know the actual costs of running the business versus the perceived costs. And then finally, thinking more about sales automatically equals more profit. Like, it's not always the case. Making more sales doesn't necessarily equals more profit. And if you're running multiple offers or multiple services or products in your business, do you understand which of those is more profitable? How much of your time is involved in delivering those projects? Which ones bring you more joy? Like, profit isn't just in the bank account, it's in the embodiment work of what brings you joy as a business owner. Like, one of my programs is not the most profitable, but I love it. It brings me so much joy. And that's why I continue to run retreats as an example. They're not the most profitable, but they bring me so much joy, right? But if I was just doubling down on retreat sales, that's not going to bring the business more profit, right? So there's a couple of things to think about here. And I also think that a lot of business owners are very reactive when it comes to thinking about what's going to make them more profit in their business. How can they pay themselves more money, rather than being proactive, making a plan, making a 12-month projection plan as what those expenses might look like, what potential upcoming expenses might need to be added into the business as you grow and scale, and looking ahead, planning ahead with revenue figures. And I would say that's probably the biggest mistake, is that a lot of business owners aren't taught how to do this. And so you end up operating in a crisis mode. And if you think about reacting to things rather than planning ahead and being proactive, is it leaves your nervous system so incredibly stressed of, I don't know what I'm doing next month. What am I selling this month? What am I promoting? Where are my clients going to come from? And then we operate in crisis mode, which is really unsettling in the body, in the nervous system, right? It activates sympathetic nervous system. We go into fight or flight, we panic, we freeze, we don't make decisions, all of those things. So there's lots of mistakes that I'm certainly seeing and have seen people make when it comes to making money. And sometimes it's like, I'll just buy this course and learn how to grow my LinkedIn account, but there's no real strategic thought behind it. And so there's a lot of foundations missing for business owners. So before we dive into how to increase your profit, we need to address the fundamental question that most business owners don't ask themselves. And that question is, what do you actually need financially to fund the life that you want? What does that actually look like? What is the amount of money that you want to pay yourself? And so many business owners will just like pluck these figures out the air, like, oh, I make 100 grand a year, or 250 a year, or $1 million. And it's like, why? Why that amount? What is important about that amount? What does that amount of money enable you to do? And so calculating the exact amount of money that your business needs to generate to pay you first is the most important question when we're doing a profit first analysis. Putting the profit first for you as the business owner, right? And defining what enough looks like for you. What does enough look like for you? And when you ask yourself that question, it's a practical question. How much money do you need to pay your bills and live the life that you want to live? But also, how much feels enough? Going back to this nervous system work, when we're working with money, money is very emotional. If you've been following my work for some time, you'll know that I always talk about the strategic and the emotional side of money. You could pay yourself 20,000 a month and it's still not feel enough, because maybe you are the architect money story type. If you've done our quiz, katherinemorgan.com/quiz, the architect needs to have more money emotionally to feel safe. Whereas the impulsive money story type, these are the story types that would prefer to spend as opposed to save. Their nervous system doesn't need as much for them to feel safe around money, right? So define what enough looks like for you. What does it feel like for you? And really dig deep into this number. There might be a difference in what you need versus what you want. You might need to pay yourself 5,000 a month, but you want to pay yourself 20,000 a month. So that 15,000 a month overflow can be redirected into investments, building your long-term wealth, those kind of areas, taking yourself on a holiday a few times a year, doing some pro bono work, taking a month out over the summer with your children, all of those things. So understanding the differences between needs and wants is also really important. And don't forget, one of the most important areas is to build a buffer for unexpected lifestyle costs. This is the one thing that, I'll be honest, I, in the past, didn't do very well around planning for unexpected expenses. So the car breaks down, the washing machine blows up, you need to get new windows in your house. Those unexpected, unplanned expenses need to be factored into this number so that you've got that safety and security. Okay. So you may feel like, well, what has this got to do with profit? Well, we've got to design your life first, like a life design audit. We want to understand what is the actual amount of money that you need and want to fund the life that you want to create. Okay. And this is why I love the Profit First model. If you haven't heard of Profit First is an American author, Mike Michalowicz, I've interviewed on this podcast before. And one of their golden rules is about paying yourself first, not last, but first. And so the traditional accounting model of take your sales minus all your expenses and then whatever's left is what you pay yourself is broken. And there's a real psychological shift when you prioritize profit. There really is a big psychological shift, paying yourself first. Some of you might be feeling like, oh, well, I don't deserve that because I want to look after everybody else and I've got my team to pay, or I just want to help everybody. But putting your needs first is a psychological shift. It's a mindset shift. But remember that your needs need to be met first. If your needs are unmet, what happens? You can't serve your clients to your full capacity. Right? You can't do some pro bono work. You can't get your vision out into the world because you're in need mode financially. So paying yourself first is so, so vital. And if you're not paying yourself what you need to pay yourself, make that your priority. If you do nothing else from listening to this, make that your first priority, understanding what that number is, and then working backwards from that place. Reverse engineering, what are the products and services that I can sell that are going to reach that first milestone? Okay. The second thing I would say that is really key in understanding profit is time, right? Time is your most valuable asset. Everything that you do in your business is an exchange of time. Every decision you're making, every yes that you're saying means that you're saying no to something else. So where are you spending your time? Where are you busying yourself in things that are not moving the needle forward in terms of profit? So are you spending all of your time creating content or being super creative, creating lead magnets or ebooks, but there's no thought process behind it, right? This is really, really common for the creative entrepreneur. I had a conversation just yesterday with an amazing businesswoman who's in my Energy of Selling program. She's an AI expert, right? People would literally pay her thousands of pounds for her AI expertise. And she was showing me this really great PDF download that she created. And I was like, what's the purpose of this download? And she didn't know, because she's like, I just love designing it. I love putting all this information, knowledge out into the world. I'm like, this is amazing, but what's the purpose? And by the end of the call, we kind of fine-tuned the purpose, and we then knew, what is she spending her time on? Is it valuable? And is it going to generate profit in her business so that she can pay herself and then she can help more people? Right? A business has to be profitable. So for a creative entrepreneur, this can be quite hard. I get it. I'm a creative entrepreneur myself. So go through your diary. Where are you spending your time? Track it. Track it for a week, 2 weeks. Do a time audit. Is this a good use of your time? Calculate what that hourly rate would convert to. And are you willing to give your time up for this? Is it an opportunity cost? Right? What are you not doing by busying yourself with this thing? Right? It will either fall into one of two camps. It will be like a low profit activity or a high profit activity. So in our Energy of Selling program, we do these audits quite regularly. I do this audit regularly in my business. I'm like, where am I spending my time? Does it fit in the low profit or high profit activity? So that's something else to really take away, is to do that time analysis, right? The next thing then is energy audit. Now, don't switch this off because you're like, oh, you're going to talk woo to me, Catherine, right? This isn't about the woo. This is about understanding what you are good at. And often the profit drain is when you're working against your strengths and not outsourcing to maximize the profit impact. So you want to build a business that energizes you, not depletes you. And part of that is understanding what you are good at. What are your zones of genius? If you are spending all of your time trying to work out Canva, trying to fix your tech links, trying to set up payment links, building a website, figuring out your lead magnet, all of those things, and it isn't your zone of genius, it's going to cost you energy. And you're going to feel depleted, you're going to feel bored, you're going to feel like, oh, I don't want to do this anymore. You'll fall out of love with your business. You don't have to be good at everything, but you do have to be good at understanding what are you good at and where can you outsource. There is a terrific book that I love around this subject that's called Who Not How. And this book talks about the question we really should be asking ourselves is, who can help me do this? Not how do I do this myself, right? So what are your zone of geniuses? Because if you double down on the things that you are good at, you will be more profitable. I guarantee you. If you spend your time doing things that you don't know how to do and quite frankly, really don't want to go figure out, go and find someone who that task sits in their zone of genius box. They'll love you for it. They'll be like, thank you so much for giving me all your receipts so I can go and put them into Xero. Or thank you so much for giving me this PDF creation in Canva because I'll do it in 20 minutes. You know, it will save you time, energy, and money. It will make you more profitable. And running a business isn't about doing things by yourself. So it gets that habit going about asking for help, delegating, rather than just having all these tasks on your lap that's going to deplete you energetically. Okay. And then the final thing before we talk about 3 ways to increase your profit is to get clear on your numbers. Okay. Now, if you are the pacifist money story type or the impulsive money story type, you're probably going to be like, oh, I don't even want to look at my numbers, Catherine. I know they're not very good, right? This isn't about judgment. This is factual, right? So do your nervous system work, do your breath work, do your tapping, whatever you need to do to get your body into a place of feeling safe to look at your numbers. Okay. And then we want to understand, what is your non-negotiable monthly pay? What are you going to pay yourself every month as the CEO, as the founder? What is that number that's going to mean that you can live the life that you need to live and you want to live? That is your non-negotiable. That's number 1. The second number that you really would love to understand is your operating expenses. So your business operating expenses is, what does it cost you to operate your business? Now, this could be monthly or annually. Some expenses you'll have will be annually, some will be monthly. And actually, a little tip here, if you want to increase your profits, look at whether you could pay some of those expenses annually. Very often subscription-based services will give you like a 15-20% discount if you pay it annually. If cash flow is more important, however, maybe switch your annuals to monthly, right? So that you hold more cash back in the business. So your business operating expenses is the number that it costs you to run your business. And it may change. It may be up and down. It might be variable. But if it is variable, which it very often will be, just get an average, right? An average cost. What does it cost you to operate that business? And include your own pay in that figure. Okay? Because that's the number 1 non-negotiable. So if you're paying yourself $5,000 a month and it costs you $2,000 a month to operate your business on average, then $7,000 a month is your figure so far. Okay? Stay with me here. The third area then is your profit percentage target. So your profit percentage target is, how much do you want to try and reach every month? Like, so for example, let's say you make 10,000 a month, you want to pay yourself 5 and your operating expenses are 2, right? So the 5,000 and the 2,000 is 7,000. and the 10,000 is your sales. So 10,000 minus the 5 and the 2 leaves you 3,000. Okay, that's what's left in the business. That will be your cash flow. Now, there will be a proportion of that that will need to be allocated to tax. And depending on where you live and how much tax you pay, there'll also be a percentage of your sales that will need to be attributed to tax. Right? It's really important to put that money aside every month so that you know you've got that money in the bank. So in the UK, for example, if you were just to take an average 20% of your sales, of that 10,000, £2,000 would be for tax. Now, in reality, it's not going to work like that because you have to minus off all your expenses before that tax is calculated. But just to simplify things, you could be putting that £2,000 a month into your tax pot, and then that would leave you with that £1,000 as your cash flow, right? Now, your profit percentage target is, well, maybe you want to try and get your profit margins to around 50% of your sales. So I'm making 10,000 a month and I want to try and get my profit margins to around 50%, right? It might be 30%, it might be 20%. It depends on the type of business that you have. But the profit first model really gets you thinking about the percentage that you're spending out on expenses versus what you're making, and track that. You know, if you're currently at 50%, so 50% of your sales goes to expenses, well, can you reduce that? Can you plug some money leaks? Can you reduce some of your expenses so that you can increase your profit margins? And you can, gamify this. You can have a bit of fun. See if over every quarter of the year you can try and increase your profit percentages. And then what would you do with that extra profit? Maybe you pay yourself more money. Maybe you go and hire your next team member. Maybe you invest that back into the business. So understanding your profit percentage is also a fun exercise to do. And then I would also think about your growth investment. So understanding, like, what amount of money do you want to grow by, right? There are seasons in business, and sometimes it's not the season in business to be growing. Sometimes it's just sustaining. Sometimes it's building recurring revenue rather than cash in the business, or like paying full amounts. But understanding your growth allocation is something to be considering in terms of, like, what is your goal financially? Is it to reduce your expenses? Is it to increase the amount you pay yourself? Is it to have some money allocated in the business for your next team hire? Just at a high level, we're not going into like the detail of this. At high level, right, what are your growth projections? What do you want to be making in the business? Okay, so a little bit of work on the numbers. Not going into too much detail there, but just as a high level. So now that you know what you need to earn and why, let's talk about the how. So there are really 3 ways to increase your profit. And every strategy that you've ever heard mainly falls into one of these 3 categories. The first one is increase revenue. The second is decreasing costs. And the third is mindset. So let's talk about these 3 areas. So the first one, increasing revenue. How can I increase my revenue, Catherine? This is a question I often get asked when people book calls with me. So let's think about this. Raising revenue. Well, you could raise your prices. This is a fast way to increase your profit margins. But I'm also not a big fan of just raise your prices for raises your prices' sake. But ask yourself, when was the last time you raised your prices? If you've been running a business for 5 years and you've never raised your prices, well, increase of living costs have gone up. And every other business is increasing their prices. So we also need to adapt to economic changes, right? So when was the last time you raised your prices? And it may be a good time to consider raising prices. The second thing is to increase the frequency of buyers from your existing client base. So very often I'll see people creating new offers, or running new workshops or events, creating new products and services to attract new clients. But actually, what about your existing clients? They are going to be the most loyal clients. They are more likely to want to buy from you because they know, like, and trust you more than a new client would who's just discovered you. So, could you look at what else do they need? What's the next level of support that they require from the work or the product that they have already purchased from you? Go and survey them, ask them, pick up the phone, send them an email, send out a like a form to capture that information. So asking yourself, how can you serve your existing clients better? The third one is then acquiring new clients. That this is the most expensive option, right? If we were to bring somebody new into our audience, and let's say this person was really interested in um, learning the tools to help themselves with money and then go on to help their clients with money, right? Typically, that would take us 6 to 12 months of building a relationship with them, nurturing that relationship, providing them with high value content, sharing stories. Maybe they might attend a couple of workshops with us, listen to 20 of our podcasts, right, before they make that decision to buy. So it is the most expensive option in terms of time and money. But maybe you are sitting there thinking, I would like some new clients. So increasing your revenue through new client acquisition is a way to increase your profits, right? So maybe you could partner with other people. Like, what rich relationships could you build that would help you to get your work out to more people? Who else has a community of people that want what you do, right? Rather than you having to go and find all those new clients yourself. So building collaborative relationships, maybe that's an area for you to focus on. And then I would say another way of increasing, I mean, there's thousands of ways, right, to increase revenue, but maybe another way might be to look at creating different revenue streams that can increase your revenue and give you back time. So an example of this might be maybe you've got a one-on-one offer, and that one-on-one offer is providing maybe it's like health advice to entrepreneurs on how to regulate their nervous system, how to eat healthily, how to have a good exercise routine. It could be a business where, for example, you're helping people with money mindset, or you're giving them business advice. And maybe it's designed around their astrology or their human design. Well, how could you put that service or offer into a online course or something that doesn't involve as much of your time? And this can be a really great way to increase your profits because you're giving yourself back the gift of time. Now, before you go and do this, it's really important, first of all, to go and survey and understand what that offer would need to look like before you go and create it. I see a lot of business owners going and creating these online courses. They'll spend weeks, thousands of pounds on doing this, and then no one buys it because they've not done enough research. They've not really understood what is the one problem that needs to be solved by this offer. And then once you have validated that through research, then you can go and double down and go and create that. And then over time, that will be something that can increase your revenue and give you back more time. But it isn't a fast thing. I know some of the gurus will say, build an overnight course and make millions, right? It does take time, but it is a great way to increase revenue. So let's just review those again. Price increase, a 10% price increase could double your profits. Okay. Maybe it is increasing the frequency of existing clients buying from you, acquiring new clients, building relationships with other people, or creating products or services that give you back some time, right? If you're getting more sales from existing clients, your client retention strategies are going to boost your lifetime value, the lifetime value of your customer, right? It's the most easiest way to go and make more money in your business. Okay, so there's a couple of practical examples there for you. The second method, then, let's dive into this decreasing costs. And for me, this is the one that feels the most heavy because it's like, oh, this is a bit boring. It's a numbers exercise. It's where are my money leaks? Like, speak to your accountant or your bookkeeper, first of all, right? They love this job. They're like, go give them a task. Go and find me 5 expenses that I don't need, or go and give me back 10% of my revenue by stripping back some of our expenses. Give me your analysis of what that looks like, right? Spend a few hours on my numbers. They love this job, right? They love this job. But you might want to do this yourself. Okay, so have a look at what are the hidden costs that are killing your profits? What are the subscriptions and the softwares that you've forgotten about? What are the 50 domain names that you've purchased on GoDaddy and haven't ever used? Maybe that's just me, right? Where are the processes that are inefficient in your business that are wasting you money? Or what's the cost of not having those systems in place? Maybe your PA is spending 5 hours replying to podcast requests that could just be automated, that would save 5 hours of someone's £30 an hour rates. Maybe you're spending 10 hours with a VA who's doing social media content and that social media content is not converting. Well, that's a leak. It's not profitable. It's not generating you a return on investment, on ROI. So it may seem boring, but as a business owner, go and challenge yourself. And even if you think you're really profitable, go do it anyway. I love doing this. I do this twice a year. I go and audit my expenses, evaluate my ROI on my investments, my subscriptions, the softwares that I'm using. And, the small things can add up over time. So if you save yourself £100 a month, well, that £100 a month could be redirected to a graphic designer who could create you a free lead magnet, and that lead magnet that costs £100 to design is going to generate the next 1,000 clients into your business, onto your email list, right? So decreasing costs, whilst it sounds boring, is really effective. That drives profit margins. Okay. And that includes your time audit. That includes the time audit. The time audit will reveal where your money's leaking. Okay. And part of this as well is looking at your contracts, look at your suppliers. Could you renegotiate those deals, those contracts? What systems and processes can you automate to reduce the labor costs? AI is a great example of this. I completed an AI course earlier, no, in fact, it was last year, 2024, and it saved me 10 hours a week by using AI to help me automate some of my processes and my systems. So also thinking about time in that exercise as well as money. So let's dive into the final method of how to increase your profits. And the final method is the mindset work behind step 1 and step 2. Okay. Most strategies fail because we haven't got the right mindset, because our nervous system feels icky to have pricing conversations, to raise our prices, to even tell our clients that we're raising prices. If your nervous system doesn't feel safe to do that, that strategy is going to fail. Even the psychology of cutting costs might feel heavy for you. If we're in this fear-based mindset, this lack mindset, then it's going to drive how we make business decisions. And so some of the most common mindset blocks I see around profit in particular is, well, I can't charge more because people won't pay that. Or I need to invest in everything right now because nothing's working, right? This fear mindset. Or, oh yeah, but I don't want to seem greedy. That would be greedy to ask for more when maybe other people are suffering in the world. Or I'm not worth that much. I need more qualifications first. Or what if my clients say no to that price increase? Right. And a big one as well is like chasing invoices. Well, I don't want to chase somebody because they're struggling. And I feel bad. I feel bad for them. It's one of the hardest things I find in business. I don't get involved in any conversations now directly, even with my team, when it comes to failed payment plans, because it just makes me feel terrible. And I'm just like, I don't like the thought of someone struggling with money. But as a business, if that client has gone into a contract with you and the business requires that money, then it is a legal issue. And if we get involved emotionally, that's when I've seen literally hundreds of businesses that are owed thousands of pounds of money because they're not asking for it. Right. And I'm sure that if Vodafone didn't get their monthly payment, they would cut your services off, right? But we feel bad as business owners because maybe you know that person, or maybe they send you an email with their story, or it's really emotionally challenging as a solo business owner when you get involved in those conversations. So energetically, maybe those are the conversations to go and outsource to a debt collection agency or to somebody in your team who can manage that in the business. Right? There's a lot of mindset work that sits behind these profit conversations. Okay. And one of the things that I think from a mindset perspective is really important is when you understand those mindset issues through awareness, then you are able to then stop and go, right, there's this part of me that is feeling icky about raising my prices, right? What is it about that that's making me feel icky? What is that part of me wanting to communicate? And holding space to hear that part of her, to hear that part of you that is feeling fearful about raising your prices, right? I remember last year, I worked with a client. She was an accountant. She had 103 clients. She raised her prices, was absolutely petrified of doing this. We drafted an email together and she sent this email out. And out of the 103 clients, she had one client who replied to say, I'm really sorry, I'm going to go elsewhere. And the one client that turned around and said that was the one client she didn't really want anyway. Right. And she hadn't increased her prices for 4 years. So the doing is often the evidence that it is safe for you to go raise your prices. It is safe for you, if you haven't done that for a few years, to do so. It is safe for you to go and do this profit assessment. It is safe for you to understand what your financial needs are first. It is safe for you to go look at your numbers, right? And ask yourself this question. Out of those 3 methods, what's going to give you the biggest impact? Is it designing your life and understanding what that means financially? Is it focusing on increasing your revenue? Is it focusing on decreasing your costs? Which one of those 3 areas feels most important? And then you can put it into like a little 90-day plan for yourself. Maybe month 1 is go and audit everything, understand your baseline. Month 2 is then implementing the highest impact changes. And then month 3 is optimizing and scaling. But watch for these little red flags. Watch if you're busy but not profitable. Watch yourself if revenue is growing but profit is shrinking. Watch yourself if you're working harder but earning less. Right? These are little red flags that are often driven by mindset. And so by doing these mindset and practical things, we can be making decisions based on data, not emotion. We can build your confidence around pricing. We can get into these daily practices. So we're laser focused on profit focused tasks, profit focused thinking, right? And what I've shared today is the foundation, the practical data-driven approach to profit. But really what I've understood and learned after working with hundreds of business owners is that the strategy is only half the battle. And most profit advice fails because it doesn't address the nervous system response. It doesn't address the energetic component of selling. It treats the symptoms, not the causes. And so combining this practical profit strategy with this nervous system regulation work enables you to create sustainable systems that honor your energy, build your confidence, and provide you with a way forwards, right? And if this is something that feels like an area that you want some support with, I would love to support you with this piece. I absolutely adore helping business owners to grow. And I can support you on a one-to-one basis or in our Energy of Selling program. This is a 6-month experience where we dive deep into your identity around selling. What is the identity around selling that is required for you to be that business owner that can create more profits in their business? We dive into the identity work a lot. What does that version of you look like? Embracing that really powerful sales identity. Then we map out your high converting offers and your pricing strategy so that you feel so good about selling your offer. And you've got all this clarity on how many clients you need to make sure that you are paying yourself a profitable amount of money so that you can reach your own financial revenue goals first. And then you can go on to help more people. And then we work on getting clear on your high converting, profitable strategy. You know, what is the marketing strategy that's going to support you to sit with this in a really beautiful, aligned way that is not in the hustle of constantly doing more in your business? And so if this feels like you right now, reach out to me on social media or head over to katherinemorgan.com/EOS, Energy of Selling. We currently have some spaces coming up for a September 2025 start. You can actually join this program at any point during the year, but we often have 2 periods during the year where we open up invitations for people to come and join us. So have a look at all the details on katherinemorgan.com/EOS. And if you'd like to have an application call with me, feel free to drop me a message on socials and we can organize that over the summer. So I really hope that you have enjoyed this episode. Feel free to share it with your friends, hit the share button and share it with someone who you know deserves to pay themselves more in their business. Thanks so much for listening, and I'll see you on the show next Monday.